You notice it in the smallest moments first, the places where real life brushes against a boundary and everything inside her flinches. It could be something as simple as you saying no to a late-night call, or refusing to explain yourself for the third time, or calmly holding your line when she expects you to fold. On the surface, it looks like a conversation. Underneath, it's an earthquake. Her voice rises just a little too fast, like a match catching dry wood. Her eyes begin to shift, not because she's searching for logic, but because something inside her feels like it's about to be exposed. You're not just disagreeing with her. You're touching a nerve she hasn't learned to sit with. You start to see it as a pattern, not an accident. A boundary appears, and suddenly the air changes temperature. The room feels tighter, smaller. She stands in front of you, saying words that sound rational, but her body betrays her. Shoulders stiff, jaw clenched, hands moving quicker than her thoughts. The raised voice doesn't come from strength. It comes from panic. The panic that real life does not bend just because she's uncomfortable. The panic that you, this man in front of her, are not reacting the way the story in her head said you should. There's a moment where you can almost see it, the shadow behind the ego. It's not visible like a movie effect, but you feel it hovering behind her, a dark shape made of old fears and unhealed humiliations. She's not only arguing with you. She's arguing with every man who left her on read. Every time her father shut down instead of listening, every quiet moment where she realized the world didn't center around what she felt. That shadow leans forward when you say, "No, I'm not going to apologize for something I didn't do." Her reaction is bigger than the situation. It always is. And as her voice rises, you notice something strange. Her posture starts to shrink. It's a contradiction written in her body. She stands taller in sound, but smaller in presence. The more she tries to dominate the moment, the more fragile she appears. The volume goes up because the self underneath doesn't feel big enough to carry the truth. She can't handle the idea that your boundary doesn't make you cruel, it just makes you real. Real life is full of edges, limits, doors that do not automatically open just because someone wants them to. You watch her eyes shifting, scanning your face like a battlefield, looking for any sign of guilt, weakness, or hesitation she can use. She asks questions that are not questions. Why are you like this? Do you even care? So my feelings don't matter? None of them are invitations to clarity. They're weapons thrown desperately because your boundary is exposing something she's not ready to see. The gap between how she imagines herself and how she actually behaves when she doesn't get her way. In those moments, you feel suspended between two realities. In one, you could fold, soften your words, lie a little to restore her comfort. In the other, you stay still, anchored, and let the storm crash around you. Real-life boundaries are not dramatic. They are quiet sentences. I'm not okay with that. I need space. I won't be spoken to like that. But to her, those words feel like rejection, abandonment, disrespect. Her ego hears them as an insult, not information. The shadow behind it whispers, if you accept this, you are weak. If he doesn't move, you are not enough. So she pushes harder. The raised voice becomes more aggressive, the shifting eyes more frantic. She might mock, interrupt, roll her eyes, talk over you, or bring up past mistakes that have nothing to do with the present moment. It's not about truth now. It's about control. She needs to feel like she can bend the situation back to a familiar shape, where your role is simple: appease, reassure, surrender. The boundary threatens that script, and she doesn't know how to rewrite it without feeling like she's losing. At some point, you stop reacting and simply observe. There's a strange power in that reflective stillness. You see her, but you also see through the performance. Not because she is faking her emotions, but because she doesn't understand them. Her anger is real. Her hurt is real. Her panic is real. But they are all misdirected. They're aimed at you, at your boundary, because it's easier than looking at the shadow behind her ego that's been steering every reaction long before you arrived. In that stillness, you feel the weight of something no one taught her to carry: reality. Not the curated one on social media, Not the one where feelings rewrite facts, but the one where choices have consequences and other people exist with needs equal to her own. Real-life boundaries confront her with that truth, and she doesn't know how to coexist with it without feeling attacked. So she shrinks and inflates at the same time, smaller inside, louder outside. You stand there, watching the pattern unfold like a scene you've seen before, even if the actors change. Different woman, same script. A man says no, stop, enough, and the room fills with the energy of someone who feels like their entire identity is being questioned. But beneath the words, beneath the raised voice and the shifting eyes, you sense it, the quiet, trembling fear that she cannot handle a world where she is not the center and where your boundary doesn't mean you hate her. It simply means you're real, and real life, for her, has always been the hardest thing to face. You begin to understand that her reaction isn't born in the moment. It's built long before the first word leaves her lips. The boundary you set is only the spark. The real fire is already inside her. As the tension grows, you watch how her emotions move faster than her thoughts, like a storm outrunning its own clouds. She speaks before she understands what she's feeling, reacts before she recognizes the trigger, and pulls you into a hurricane she doesn't know how to control. This isn't about what you said. It's about what it touched. Her shadow reacts first. Always. It leaps forward the moment your boundary appears, stepping into the conversation before she does. You can almost feel it tightening the atmosphere, bending her posture, narrowing her eyes. She's not responding to your words. She's responding to the story her fear tells her about your words. You say, "I need space," and her shadow hears, "You're being abandoned." You say, "I don't like that tone," and her shadow hears, "You are failing." You say, "Don't cross that line," and her shadow hears, "You're not enough." By the time the message reaches her, the distortion is complete. That's why the reaction feels too big, too sharp, too personal. You're talking to her. Her shadow thinks you're attacking. And as the shadow steps forward, the reflection tightens. You see it in her expression, a kind of emotional clench, like her inner world contracts around a single fear, losing control. Her eyes dart, not because she's thinking, but because she's searching for a way to regain the emotional upper hand. You can sense the tension in the space between her logic and her feelings. The emotions sprint ahead, slamming into you, demanding a response, while her logic struggles miles behind, trying and failing to catch up. This is why her reactions contradict themselves. She wants calm, but brings chaos. She wants clarity, but speaks in accusations. She wants to be understood, but won't slow down long enough to understand herself. The more she tries to control the moment, the more the moment controls her. You notice how she fills the space with noise, words spilling out too quickly, tones sharpening, phrases repeating as if louder means truer. She's not trying to communicate. She's trying to overwhelm. Her emotional system is sprinting, trying to outrun the discomfort of sitting still with the truth that someone else has a limit she cannot bend. Boundaries feel like walls to her, not guideposts. Every no, every pause, every refusal to break under pressure feels like rejection wrapped in politeness. And yet, there's something almost fragile beneath the storm. A hesitation buried beneath the raised voice. A small tremble disguised as sarcasm. A quiet desperation inside the quick accusations. You catch glimpses of this as she speaks. The shrinking posture returns, even if masked by bravado. She steps forward to prove she's unaffected, but her shoulders curl inward the moment she feels your stillness. She tries to dominate the moment, yet she keeps glancing at you to see if she's gone too far. There's a battle happening inside her between the part that wants connection and the part that fears vulnerability. The fear always reacts faster. Real-life boundaries don't just challenge her behavior. They challenge her story of herself. In her mind, she is the one who should be listened to, the one whose emotions should set the tone, the one who decides when a moment becomes serious. But when you stay steady, when you don't rise to the bait or collapse under the pressure, something cracks inside her. That crack is the space between intention and response. The place where she tries to be reasonable, but her emotions hijack the wheel. You watch her try to explain herself, but each word carries the weight of something she hasn't faced. The shadow behind her ego pulses with every insecurity she's buried, every past argument she won, only because the other person gave up. Those victories didn't teach her how to handle truth. They taught her how to avoid it. And now, faced with a man who doesn't run, doesn't crumble, doesn't bow, she doesn't know how to navigate the terrain. It's in this moment that the reflection tightens again. You see her struggle, not with you, but with herself. A part of her knows she's spinning. A part of her hates that she knows it. The emotions move ahead of logic once more, pulling her into another wave of reaction. Maybe she sighs dramatically, or throws out a sarcastic remark, or rolls her eyes like the entire world is failing her at once. These gestures aren't about disrespect, they're shields. Quick responses designed to protect the ego from feeling exposed. But you do not move. You do not argue. You do not match her emotional speed. And something shifts. Your stillness pulls her reflection into clearer focus. When she sees that her emotional storm isn't changing you, some of the intensity drains from her. The space between intention and reaction stretches, just a little. Enough for her to feel something she rarely allows herself to feel. The awareness that she's losing control, not of you, but of the internal mechanism she has never questioned. The shadow pauses. The reflection hesitates. The emotions slow. And for a brief moment, the energy changes, not resolved, not healed, but exposed. She stands there, caught between the part of her that repeats old patterns and the part that wonders why those patterns keep failing. She isn't ready to admit anything yet. She isn't ready to soften. But the mechanism is no longer hidden. You've seen it. And on some level, she knows you've seen it. The story isn't ending. It's deepening. You can feel the atmosphere shift before she even speaks. It's subtle. The way her shoulders drop half an inch, the way her breathing slows, the way her eyes stop scanning for weakness and begin, slowly, to search for truth. Something inside her has cracked open just enough for the storm to lose its grip. She's not calm yet, not fully aware, not ready to admit anything out loud. But the energy she carries no longer feels like a weapon. It feels like confusion trying to become clarity. Your stillness becomes a mirror she can't escape. Not the mirror she uses to check her appearance, but the one she avoids, the one that reflects her patterns back at her. And in that reflection, the shadow that once reacted first begins to flicker. It doesn't vanish. It doesn't surrender. But it loses its dominance. You watch her eyes soften, not because she agrees with you, but because she's finally meeting herself in the aftermath of her own reaction. The raised voice that once filled the room begins to sound distant, as if she can hear it the way you did. Too sharp, too frantic, too revealing. She remembers the intensity, the words thrown out of fear, the accusations shaped by emotion instead of reality. And for the first time, she doesn't try to outrun the discomfort. She feels it. This is where recognition begins. Not an apology, not an explanation, but in the moment she realizes the storm came from inside, not from you. Her posture changes again, but this time there is no inflation, no attempt to tower over the moment. She stands smaller, but more honest, a shape stripped of the dramatized urgency she used to protect herself. You see her shadow behind her ego shrink into a more human form, no longer the monstrous figure controlling her reactions. It moves closer, merging slowly instead of fighting for space. The battle between who she is and who she thinks she needs to be begins to quiet. The mirror that once distorted everything now clears, like fog dissolving after a long night. There is distance still, but it's changing. It no longer feels like a wall. It feels like a space where understanding might grow. And in that space, you feel something shift inside yourself too. Because boundaries are not only about protecting yourself from her. They're also about revealing the places where you once shrank to avoid this chaos. You realize how many times in your past you softened your voice to avoid triggering someone. How often you ignored your own limits just to keep the peace. How much guilt you carried for wanting something as simple as respect. That old version of you would have folded before her tone rose, would have apologized just to stop the storm, would have taken responsibility for emotions that were never yours to carry. But now, standing here, you feel the weight lift. The storm doesn't own you. Her reaction doesn't define you. Her shadow no longer shapes your choices. You're not here to manage her fears, nor to fix the parts of her she refuses to face. And strangely, she feels that too. There is a moment, fleeting but unmistakable, where her eyes meet yours without defense. No shifting, no searching for angles, no frantic scanning for power. Just presence. A brief recognition that the version of herself she showed wasn't the whole truth. A recognition that your boundary wasn't cruelty, but clarity. A recognition that real life requires more strength than emotion alone can provide. The storm quiets, not because she is healed, but because she is finally standing in the same reality as you. You see her shadow settle behind her, no longer looming, no longer dictating her next move. The emotional distance shrinks as her posture softens into something more grounded. She doesn't apologize, not with words, but through the way she stops fighting, through the way she listens, through the way she no longer tries to twist your boundary into an insult. And in that moment, the mirror clears entirely. She sees you as you are, a man with edges, limits, truth, not the threat her fears imagined, not the villain her emotions try to paint, just a man who will not abandon himself to keep her comfortable. And she sees herself, too, not as the victim of your boundary, but as someone standing at the edge of her own unexamined patterns. For the first time, she feels the weight of that truth without collapsing under it. This is the silent resolution most people never reach. Not a dramatic reconciliation, not a tearful confession, but a quiet step into awareness. A moment where two people stand inside the same emotional landscape and finally recognize what is theirs to carry and what is not. Your boundary did not break her. It revealed her. And in revealing her, it revealed you too. The storm is not gone forever. Her patterns will return. The shadow will rise again. But now she knows what it looks like. Now you know what it feels like. And that shared awareness is the first real step towards something deeper. Something honest. Something human. The story doesn't end with perfection. It ends with clarity. And clarity is the only foundation real life ever needed.